Presentation Mastery. It's a level 5, Prepare to Speak Professionally. And this is a 15 to 20 minute speech titled How a Toastmaster Speech Has Changed My Life. Now, I see that we don't have an evaluator for Ed's speech, so what I'm going to propose is that we do a roundtable discussion and try to bring Ed a couple of points that we noticed with the speech, and we can do this after table topics. So I'm going to read, I'm going to read the purpose of Ed's speech. And this is to write and present a 15 to 20 minutes keynote style speech. Exemplify the point of view or message that you would convey as a professional level speaker. You may choose to use visual aids if they fit your speech or style. Your speech may be humorous, informational, or a style that appeals to you and supports your speech content. If you receive advance approval from the Vice President of Education, you may present your speech to a non-Toastmasters group. So Ed has chosen to present to us here tonight. I'll read his intro. Ed Nicholson has been a Toastmaster for many years. His first Competent Communicator Educational Award was awarded in 1997. He achieved Distinguished Toastmaster in 2011 and continues with Toastmasters to maintain his speaking and leadership skills and to help others do the same. He believes Toastmasters can be fun in addition to helping with personal and professional life successes. Here, giving how a Toastmaster speech changed my life, please welcome Ed Nicholson.
What would it take you to change your mind about something that absolutely terrified you? Madam Table Topic Miss, Madam Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. Going back many years ago, I was very shy. And talking to people, especially one-on-one, if that one was an authority figure, was something that just filled me with dread. And speaking to a crowd of people, that was terrifying. And this leadership thing, that was something I always thought just full of trouble, no reward, all sorts of issues, bad news, just don't do it sort of thing. Unfortunately, at work, this was being reflected in how my supervisors and my colleagues saw me too. And it was becoming a problem. So much a problem that one year at my annual performance review, that's when my manager and I get together and we talk about how well I did, or perhaps some need for suggestions for improvement. In this particular case, perhaps because this was the time when the Chalk River Labs Toastmaster group was just starting to form up. Formed, by the way, by a lot of the managers and people in my building where I was working at the time. So anyway, this manager was familiar with the Toastmasters could do, so he suggested to me that perhaps it would be good for me to join this Toastmaster club to get past my shyness and be able to be a more productive member of a team sort of thing. Well, at the time, this was an absolute no-no for me. I had known a bit about Toastmasters because they were all chatting about it, how excited they were all about this. But for me, I looked at Toastmasters from my shy point of view, and I saw them as a bunch of terrible people, sadists, the devil themselves, that would prop victims like me up in front of huge crowds and make them sweat blood. Because that's how I felt public speaking was like, and I wanted nothing to do with it. So no way, I did not join Toastmasters at that time. I just put it right out of my mind. Later on, like the very next merit review, I had a different supervisor then, but for some reason he thought I too would do better if I joined Toastmasters. Well, my attitude hadn't changed at all. This was still a no way sort of thing. Absolutely no way was that going to have anything to do with that. But fortunately for me, an opportunity did come along for me to see a contest-winning speaker. Now, how did that happen? Just one lazy Sunday afternoon, I had nothing else to do. So I was sitting in my comfort chair, looking at my TV, just channel hopping all the way through the professionally made shows, none of which held my attention any longer than it took for me to click the channel to go on to the next one. Until I came to the community channel. Suddenly, amateur land. Everything was very unprofessional. And here I saw a gentleman standing on a makeshift stage. I think it was just a pallet. He was dressed nicely and making a nice presentation for himself. You see, he was describing, in his speech, he was describing the first time that he did a skydive. He was standing on the edge of that pallet, on that makeshift stage, with his hands up like this, as if he was holding onto the door frame of an airplane, high up in the sky. And then he did a little jump off of that stage like this, and put his arms up as if he was flying through the air. And suddenly, I was no longer seeing a gentleman give a speech on a stage, but I was actually, in my imagination, I could envision him jumping out of the plane and flying. That made me change my mind about Toastmasters. That made me want to perhaps look into this thing that terrified me. Next day, I was talking to some of my friends at work, and one of them turned out to be a Toastmaster. And she invited me to not one, but two Toastmaster clubs. There was the Deep River Toastmaster Club, and there was the Chalk River Labs Toastmaster Club. This is my opportunity. So she took me to the Deep River Club and introduced me to the people there, and I went through the meeting. It was somewhat useful. It was getting there, but I wasn't sure whether I wanted to join or not. Actually, the next day, I had a chance to go to the Chalk River Labs Toastmaster Club. Now, of course, this is at work. It's a totally different environment. Everything's so rush when you're at work. And in fact, I just got out of a meeting that ran a little late. So I wasn't completely late for the Toastmaster meeting, but I was definitely getting close to that. So I hurried into the meeting. Only in passing, I found out I met the lady who had invited me and later became my mentor. And she said, sorry, I got to do a little extra job first here, but I'll be there maybe a little late, but I'll be there, okay? You go ahead by yourself and enjoy the meeting. So here I was on my way to the meeting, being just not quite late, but really later than I wanted to be. I rushed right into the room and stopped dead when I looked around and saw all these very important looking people sitting around this big round conference table getting ready for a meeting. I think, oh my God, I'm in the wrong place. I might be interrupting some high-level business meeting here. Some high-member executive type directors or whatever. I don't want to interrupt this. And I'm thinking about fleeing back out the way I came. But I noticed the Toastmaster banner. And I figure, oh, I'm in the right place. But I started making a decision. Do I flee out anyway? Because this doesn't look like my people here. Or do I hide in the back of the room here? Perhaps that'll work. But before I make my mind up, one of the people at the table sees me, gets up and comes all over and shakes my hand and welcomes me to the meeting. Wow, what a change. And by the time we start moving over towards the table, a couple other people have stood up as well to welcome me. And despite the fact that the table was fairly full and they're all getting very busy getting ready for the meeting, they move the chairs aside and they make room for me to sit along with them. What a welcome! This was a fantastic way to find some new friends. It was an interesting meeting. I don't remember too much about it at this point right now, but I do remember the dreaded table topics. This is where you have to make a little tiny speech in a very short time with no preparation. Okay, I saw some people struggling with it, but I figured, hey, it's pretty nifty. I'll try that one of these distant days from now. Later on at the end of the meeting, they asked me if I wanted to join. I said, of course, I want to join. At that time, the lady who invited me here was there as well, and she offered to be my mentor. Wow, that was terrific. That's how I got into the Toastmasters meeting. Now, from that point on, many days, many meetings, I came out regularly to enjoy myself, to see what was going on, and I even started volunteering for things after a while, despite how terrified I was on a lot of these things. But I got a little bit of experience with seeing how people did their speeches, how things worked. And of course, my mentor was helping me too along the way. She was helping me get ready for my icebreaker speech. So we practiced. Oh, let's call it what it really was. I procrastinated. And so we finally got to the point where my mentor told me, time, you're ready. She practically twisted my arm behind my back. Did I mention earlier I was terrified of public speaking? And anyway, signed up for the icebreaker speech. The day came for my icebreaker speech. I had every word I was going to say on a sheet of paper. That's allowed for an icebreaker speech. You don't have to memorize anything. You can actually read your speech. And then the Toastmaster introduced me and welcomed me to the front of the room where I made my first icebreaker speech. Yeah, I was nervous. I was terrified. But I did. I read every word that was on that page, and by the time I finished reading that page, my paper of note, was a sopping wet rag from the sweat from my hands. But I did it. I got it done. I don't remember too much about what my speech evaluator said afterwards, but I do remember the clapping and the praise I got from that effort of making my icebreaker speech. I remember the evaluator praising me for the courage to do it. I'm sure it wasn't one of my better speeches by a long shot, but it probably was the most important speech I did because it got me over the extreme terror I had of public speaking. Now, along after that, many meetings, I got more involved in the leadership side of the roles that we play each week in terms of running the meeting. I got more experience in terms of doing work on the executive, getting more confidence in my leadership skills. All these things added up to a more confident me. That was going to become very helpful later on, as I'm going to describe here. Now, how many things did I do as a Toastmaster? Well, I became the VP Ed of my club during a time when things were struggling. We put on the 20th anniversary. That made a huge difference. It got people more excited. Well, actually, we had more people from the previous members came than current members. I think we even had more people from the higher levels of the Toastmaster Corporation there, the executive, etc., of the district, even the trio, some of the trio were there. It was an incredible turnout. And how much difference did that make? We made publicity out of that whole thing too, such that the very next year, when I was the club president, hey, talk about progress here, eh? From terrified to being the club president, we actually got over 20 members in the club. Didn't get the distinguished yet, that would follow the next year, but because we didn't have enough goals met, but we had the 20 members back. That was a huge difference. The previous year, 3 active members to 20 members because of the things we did. Hey, this is progress, right? And of course, it didn't stop there. I became an area governor. That's what we now call an area director. I had lots of opportunities then to be involved with people, had a chance to do my high performance leadership, and Fran there was very much involved in that. She was one of my guidance people, in fact, the prime person to help me get through that process of being the best area director I could be as my high performance leader project. Wow, that was at a high point. Confidence building, incredible. Not just one club. There were 5 clubs there I was looking after. Wow. Now, how did that apply to the rest of my life? Well, the confidence that I had at that time, I think showed a lot because my manager started giving me more opportunities. I found more opportunities myself too. One of those opportunities was my away assignment. This is where I worked, not for my own management, but for the management of the Pickering Company, part of Ontario Power Generation at Pickering. Worked there on their Pickering A return to service, learned new skills that were well above my pay grade, what I was used to doing. That was an interesting time. Of course, that project ended and I was back at AECL again and fit into another big project that was going on at that time. But I was experiencing a thing at that time called the glass ceiling. You see, I only had a 3-year diploma, 3-year technology certificate, rather than an actual degree, which takes like 4 years. The extra year I didn't take. It's a different path. It meant that it didn't matter how hard I worked or what work I did, even if it was well above my pay grade, I could not get much of a promotion each year, much of a pay increase each year. And perhaps it was opportunity that was coming. But at first it didn't seem like opportunity because the whole project that I was working on after I came back from Pickering suddenly crashed and burned. It was shut down. And all the people that were working on that project suddenly were competing for the few other jobs that were left in the company. Now the company did set up a job fair where they tried to place people. And they did place a lot of the people, but unfortunately some of them were like square pegs and round holes. And about 6 months later they got laid off. The position they found for me, a senior tech at that time, was a low-level entry tech position. Not only was that going to be something I didn't want to do, but I'd also have to bump a friend out of that position in order to take it. And I doubly didn't want to do that. Fortunately, I had another option, although it wasn't an easy option. There was still in effect a thing called an internal competition in the plant. So I could apply to any of those positions, so long as the HR, Human Resources Department, would grant me an interview. Unfortunately, the positions I was looking at, it said degree required. I didn't have one. So they wouldn't even give me an interview. So, oh, I'm going to regress. Remember when I first walked into that room and saw this room full of very important looking people? Well, if they weren't managers then, they were people that were probably managers or were managers at this time. I knew people. Like they had, sometimes people say, you know, it's not what you know, it's who you know. Well, this made a big difference for me. Not only that, but I had the ability to get out of my shy shell and actually go to these people and ask them and tell them that I had the skills, I just couldn't get the interview. People I talked to arranged for the interview. It wasn't just 3 people on the interview committee, by the way. It was 8 people. I'm not sure just what was going on behind the scenes there. But hey, no problem. I was, at that point, quite confident in myself. I knew how to do these things. I wooed the entire committee. I showed them I not only had the skills to communicate and true leadership, which were requirements for that new job, but I also, because I had been working above my pay scale for so long, I knew how to do the work. There was no problem with that at all. That was done. And after the meeting, one of the people I knew told me informally, no problem, I had the job. That was an incredible relief and yay, success. Okay, that was there. And my career from that point on, remember that glass ceiling? It was gone. My career, every year, I was getting tremendous increases. Yes, my career from that point was headed to the sky. Things were really, really good. Now, getting back to the beginning of the speech there when I described that I was very shy, I asked you what it would take for you to change your mind about something that really terrified you. Well, public speaking really terrified me. And seeing in that speech back then, quite a while ago, of a gentleman giving a simple speech on a makeshift stage, where he was talking about being high up in the sky. Seeing that gentleman speak helped me to go from shy to the sky. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you very much, Ed. Minutes for evaluations. Timer, Roger.
Okay.